Come again? You know I don't speak Spanish. In English, please. Huh? You pooped in the refrigerator.
Hello, Jedediah. Hello, Charlie. I didn't know we were speaking. Sure we're speaking, Jedediah. You're fired.
Pete, the personal rancor reflected in that remark I don't intend to dignify with comment. But I would like to address your general attitude of hopeless negativism.
Good. Well, drive carefully, because the life you save might mean your own. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for Mrs. Lippman's family.
Hey, how are you? It's been a week. I had a week off, as opposed to an off week, which is what I have every week that I do a show. Hi, I'm Mark, and this is the Cinemaniacs. I am the Cinemaniac, you are a Cinemaniac. We collectively, royally, are the Cinemaniacs. So I have a lot on the list. I actually cut two films from the list so that I would have a little bit more time to blab about these things. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to whiffle way over to this camera over here. Close, not bad. We have the new release that I saw this weekend. This is a family film. This is the third film, I think, in a series. And I think there's also a TV show. Basically, this tells the tale of a young man and his fantastical serpent-like magical being who can fly and breathe fire and do all kinds of fun things like that. This is How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World.
You're witnessing the creation of an incredible new world, a world of unbelievable excitement and fun, the world of the Dingalings.
I saw these films in a weird order. I saw the second movie first because I had to see it for the show. Never saw the original. Really was surprised how much I liked How to Train Your Dragon 2. Went back and watched the first one, really liked that. So I really liked the first two movies. They had a lot of heart, fanciful fantasy kind of stuff, and pretty funny and well rendered visually. And then this film came along. No number in the series, so I wasn't quite sure, number in this title, I wasn't quite sure which one this was, but it's the third. And I didn't really connect with this one very much for some reason. I'm not sure why. I went in interested in seeing it, and for some reason I just was not terribly interested in the story. Basically, you have this utopia where these people who train the dragons and keep after the dragons, and the dragons all live. And then you have a bad guy who comes in who wants to eradicate the dragon. So it's sort of a big battle scenario that comes up. In that, you see the Toothless, I believe it's called, the main dragon in the film that finds a potential mate, and there's courtship and all that other stuff going on, and there's intrigue, and there's fiery battle sequences. But for some reason, I wasn't really into it. I saw this on a Saturday matinee, and it was packed. A lot of families, a lot of little kids, and they all seemed to be really into it. They were laughing a lot. Although there was one point toward the end where I did hear a little kid ask when it was going to be over. So maybe I wasn't the only one that wasn't totally engaged with this. Very emotional ending to the film, which surprised me. So I think if you like the other films, you'll probably like this. It's fine for kids. It moves right along. It has the sadly apparently required rectal humor so that kids will understand that it's for them, I guess. But overall, I didn't love the third How to Train Your Dragon. I don't think it's a bad movie. It just did not capture my spirit the way the first two did. Now we move on to the next film, also animated heavily or heavily use of CGI. This is based on a Japanese anime or manga, or perhaps both, about a scientist in a future dystopian world. Aren't they all dystopian in the future these days? Who finds the remnants of a cyborg and decides to bring her to life and have her a part of his family, only to discover that in reality she is not merely a cyborg who was found in a dump pile. She is Alita, Battle Angel.
Here's a real champion. Dingaling boxer packs a solid punch. There's a left, a right, an uppercut. Look at them go. Dingaling Rocky is right on target. He's one sharpshooter that doesn't miss.
This is one I wasn't really looking forward to based on the trailer. I don't know if it was that trailer or a different one that I saw. Directed by Robert Rodriguez, who's given us things such as El Mariachi and Once Upon a Time in Mexico and Dusk Till Dawn and Spy Kids and on and on and on. He's a man who really likes, like James Cameron, likes to embrace the technology, A lot of green screen, a lot of motion capture. So I wasn't looking forward to this. I wound up liking this quite a bit. This is, again, very good action in this film, some very badass food type stuff, some interesting futuristic stuff, visually very interesting. If there's a 3D option, I would probably say take it on this film because it does really interesting things with the landscape and the world that this happens in. Main character, Alita, is entirely motion capture. It's not a real person standing there. And at first I thought it was going to be really distracting. Most CGI to me is still not quite there yet. And if you're trying to put something around normal people, they don't quite move right. In this, I excuse that because it's supposed to be a cyborg. It's supposed to be a robot. It's not going to totally move right. But this is probably the best motion capture I've seen so far. It looked very realistic for the most part. She has really big eyes, which is sort of an anime thing, I think. And it also sets her apart as not being quite like everybody else. But I was watching this character. I felt like I was watching a real person, a real robot in this movie, and that was kind of cool. Some of the CGI and costume and design choices I thought were a little silly looking. You have these people who are cyborgs that are huge, muscular, giant torsos, little head, body parts that are swords and blades, and some of that seemed a little silly to me. That's the kind of thing that will work on the comic page or in animation really well, but when you put that in the real world, they just don't quite look right. Sort of the same reason that so many superhero movies just put the superheroes in black leather because, bright yellow and orange doesn't always look good in real life. A lot of heart in this movie that I did not expect, a lot of emotions that I didn't expect. Christoph Waltz is very good as the protector of Alita. You have Mahershala Ali, who just won an Oscar last night for Green Book as a bad guy in this. You have Jennifer Connelly. You have Ed Norton pop up in a really weird small role. So a bigger cast than I expected. And this obviously this sets up to there to be more films. I kind of feel like this won't be successful enough to get another one, which is too bad because I would watch more of this. PG-13, probably fine for teenagers, maybe not younger kids. There is one use of the F word which had me wanting to stand up and cheer when it happened. It was one of the best, the one F word you're allowed in a PG-13 uses I've seen in a while. And also, there's violence, but a lot of it is like robot-on-robot violence or sort of off-screen. So you know what happens and it's not pleasant, but you don't really see it. In this world, there is a very rollerball kind of thing that goes on. It's like high-end roller derby to the death, whatever, which is kind of fun to see. I've got a lot to cover, so I don't have a lot of detail. I thought Alita was really good. It's certainly worth seeing in the theater on the big screen with good sound. I don't feel like this is going to be around very long once some bigger things come out, but I was very pleasantly surprised with this. Speaking of pleasantly surprised, I was with this film too. This is a sequel to a movie I saw last year and loved and watched again and loved. And I was like, okay, they're doing it again, and I'm kind of okay if they do the same thing all over again. This is about a woman who wakes up in a college dorm room and has to live her life over and over and over again because she keeps getting killed. And every time she gets killed, she wakes up to start the day over again. It's basically a horror version of Groundhog Day. This is the sequel to a story that did that. What does this film do? Well, I will show you the clip, and it might tell you a little something, and I might or might not tell you any more than that, but it is called Happy Death Day to You.
It's intermission time. The concession stand is open and ready to serve you.
So I went into this thinking, okay, it's going to be the exact same thing again, only this time it'll be different ways she foils the killer or whatever. And I was going to be fine with that because I love the first one so much, and I'm like, okay, if they keep the scenarios interesting, I'll be totally with this movie. Well, okay, if you want to see this, I'm going to tell you two things. This is all you need to know. If you really like the first one, this is not a horror movie. The second film is not a horror movie. The first one was a horror comedy. This sequel is really much more of a sci-fi comedy with a little pinch of horror element and a whole lot of, again, the buzzword of the week, a whole lot of heart. This gets really like dramatic and touching in a way I didn't expect, which was good. And I'm actually very happy that this isn't exactly the same thing all over again. It starts off as that repeating day, and then it moves into this whole other thing, which is I'd never expected. And then if you go to see this in the theater, stay into the credits because partway through the credits, there's a whole other scene that sets up a third chapter. Now, I don't know if they're ready to go with this, if the film does well, or if it's just a joke. Either way, I would absolutely pay my money to sit down and see a third chapter of this film where they're saying it's going to go, because it basically takes a very simple idea and is like, okay, we're not going to do the same thing all over again. And I have to give them huge props for that. It's very funny. The cast is extremely likable. It goes back into the first movie. Some of the characters come back, so it's certainly worth seeing the first movie before you see this one. I would highly recommend the first movie. I loved Happy Death Day to You. I would watch it again. I'll probably buy the first two of these and the third one if it comes out. And I can't say much more than that because we have more films to cover. Okay, now onto a film that actually isn't out yet. This is rare that I get a sneak peek like this. This is a film that comes out on video on demand and in theaters on March 1st, which is just a couple of days from now. So by the time you watch this, it may already be out. This is a film set in, again, sing along if you know the words, a dystopian future where females are cordoned and regimented in how they live in this underground bunker, and they're being trained for something in Level 16. They even get the trailer right on this one. So many trailers will tell you everything that happens in the movie. And then there's this twist, and then there's this twist. To me, a good trailer should just be a teaser. It should make you say, what is this? I want to know more. I want to see how this story goes. So Level 16, no major stars, probably nobody you'll recognize in this film, limited number of locations, probably limited means of production, but it really shows you, showed me how much you can achieve in sci-fi without expensive special effects. You don't need that. All you need is good writing and good ideas and decent to good performances, and this film has all of that and more. So basically the scenario is you are introduced to this underground bunker somewhere. We're basically told the world outside is poisoned and you can't go outside, and these girls are being trained sort of from birth to act a certain way, be a proper woman, try to be a proper lady, behave in certain ways, and when you reach level 16, when you're 16 years old, you might, if you're good enough, if you've done the things you're supposed to do, you may be picked by a family to go and live with them. So basically you will get parents at this point. This film is, one of the things I really like about this is most of the way through this film, you're with the main characters who are these girls who don't know anything about anything. This is just the life they've always known. So as new developments happen, it is revealed to you and you learn along with them. So you're not really one step ahead of the game, which is fine. I had no idea where this movie was going to go, so the surprises were big surprises. They were really interesting. They were creepy and gruesome at times, not visually, but just in terms of what really was going on here. Eventually all is revealed, and this reminded me in a good way of a lot of other films. This is like the Tom Cruise movie Oblivion a few years ago. Yes, it was derivative of a bunch of other things, but I like all those things that it was derivative from. I like all the ingredients, and they cooked me up something new that I hadn't had before. And I would say the same of Level 16. It is, what was I going to say? It is, I don't know what else I was going to say. I really like Level 16 a lot. It's the kind of film that probably is going to go under the radar for most people because there isn't a major star and it's getting straight to video and very limited theatrical release. It's totally worth your time if you like sci-fi, if you like things like The Handmaid's Tale or sort of futuristic sci-fi and dystopian things. It's very heavy in the social commentary if you look for it, but if you're oblivious or ignorant, it probably will go right over your head. Things about, women in society and capitalism and science and just greed. It's very interesting, and I really liked Level 16 a lot. So that is all that I'm going to talk about that was in the theater. Now we will discuss that which is available now on the video service, format, device, or whatever of your choice. First up is a huge film that was Oscar nominated, a sequel to a film from a year or two ago in which two characters from an arcade game or two arcade games bust out into the World Wide Wet and discover what happens when Ralph breaks the internet.
I want to thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for attending the 3rd International Conference on Science and Technology. This afternoon,
What the heck is that?
Well, I don't know, but that's another one.
Good gracious, there goes another one.
They're multiplying.
I really enjoyed the first Wreck-It Ralph, and this one looked promising, and I thought it was really good. It does for the first film. The first film makes fun of a lot of video game isms and things like that. This movie is about the internet, so this really attacks, pop-up ads and email scams and all kinds of silly websites and internet memes and videos, and it sort of creates this world of the internet where a lot of these things are sort of given physical form or structure or things like that. It's gorgeous to look at. This was beautiful to look at in the theater. Very, very funny, again, touching at times. One of the big things in this film, this was produced by Disney or Pixar, I can't recall which. It has access to Disney properties, sorry, it's been a week. And so you get all of the Disney princesses in one scene, and it's extremely funny, where they're basically spoofing all of these little characters and the characters' isms or whatever. And you have some Star Wars characters in there because Disney owns Star Wars now. And there is a sequence, not to give much away, but there is a sequence where the Disney princesses sort of save the day. And it's like, this is the movie I want to see. I want to see the Disney princess action team because it's very funny how each of their powers are something that is, part of what their character is known for. The movie's really worth watching just for that. But otherwise, it's very funny. It's moving at times, and it was good. I would watch another Wreck-It Ralph movie. I don't know where they can take it from here, but this one was absolutely, I think, as good as the first. Speaking of films that I've seen, all of them. This is a film that's very reminiscent of a film I liked as a kid, and it is about a bunch of soldiers in World War II who parachute behind enemy lines in France to take out enemy radio installation, and they get way more than they bargained for when they find undead Nazi zombie soldiers in a little film entitled Overlord.
This is Tiger Joe.
Sadly, unlike Maximum Overdrive, this does not have an entirely AC/DC soundtrack. I was somewhat disappointed by the fact that that song wasn't used in the movie, but I kind of knew it was just for the trailer anyway. So I'm a big fan of this movie called Shockwaves from 1977 with Peter Cushing about underwater Nazi zombies. And I've always wanted to see another movie that I liked that had sort of that idea. And there was a movie called Dead Snow. It was a Swedish horror comedy and a sequel that I really didn't like. And this is another film that I really didn't like. This is a movie that a lot of people love. A lot of horror fans really liked this, so I just may be the anomaly on this. But it starts out, these guys parachute behind enemy lines into this town in France in World War II, and they're having like they're surrounded by enemies at night, and they're trying to sneak into this town, and they're having like full volume arguments and conversations, which I thought was kind of an odd choice. And then a landmine goes off and blows a couple of the guys up, and still that brings apparently none of these people who are surrounding the area to. There were just these logic things like this in a movie about zombies, I understand, that I didn't really care for. And also for me, it took way too long to get to the horror element of the film when they find this weird lab where these people are being injected with this serum that turns them into these like Incredible Hulks, basically. I didn't really care for the special effects in it. The movie just did not work for me. I didn't care for it, but a lot of people do. So if it looks good to you, probably you'll like it. It wasn't my bag. I guess it lacked Peter Cushing or something. Up next, speaking of films that lack Peter Cushing, this film, despite all obvious reasons to have Peter Cushing in it, not withholding that he's been dead for a couple of decades, did not have him in it. This is, again, Oscar-nominated film, won an award or two last night, starring Bradley Cooper, directed by Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga, Sam Elliott, and others, in the latest telling of a tale of a young hopeful who wants to make it in showbiz, who gets together with an older, grizzled showbiz person, and sparks fly when a star is born.
Yeah, we admire wieners, Oscar Mayer wieners. They are so plump and tender too.
It's Oscar Mayer for me and you.
Wieners, Oscar Mayer wieners, the best you ever put in buns.
'Cause they're the juicy, all-meat ones.
So it's obvious to say this is not a news story. The whole, it's not a news story in several ways. The whole young, somewhat innocent person comes into showbiz and has a rough and tumble time and come out on the end triumphant but scarred. This is the third time this film has been told, at least as called A Star is Born. You had the Janet Gaynor version, you had the Judy Garland version, this is the fourth time. You had the Barbra Streisand version, of which this is, I think, more a remake of the Streisand version with Chris Christopherson than any of the others. I have not seen the other versions. I've never seen the Streisand. I have not seen the first two versions in a long time, so I can't tell you. In broad strokes, I knew what was going to happen in this film, but you can look at this two ways. If you've seen the others, you can say, okay, does this compare to the other movies? Or you can look at this and say, how is this movie by itself on its own? I was going to this mostly as a movie on its own because I don't have a strong remembrance of the others. I thought this was great. I didn't expect much out of this at all. And frankly, I was a little worried it was going to be country music, which was the genre we'd be working in here. Thank God it wasn't. It's much more of a singer-songwriter, Chris Christopherson kind of thing. Bradley Cooper as the Chris Christopherson character, let's say, as the experienced showbiz guy, he was almost unrecognizable in this movie. Like, if I wasn't wearing my glasses and you didn't tell me he was in this movie, it would have taken me a little while to realize that's who I was looking at. He doesn't sound like Bradley Cooper. He sings really well. He carries himself unlike I've ever seen him act before. Lady Gaga was really good. I don't know that she was great acting-wise, but she's so good as a singer and as a musical performer that kind of overshadows. And maybe her lack of perfect acting sort of works in terms of who this character is. She's somebody who's finding her footing in life as a person and as a performer and all that other stuff. Beautifully shot. The music is really good. I thought this movie was great. This is one I saw in the theater and a whole lot of people sniffling at the end of the film. So it's pretty emotional as well. Buzzword of the day, it's got heart. Anyway, this is out on video now. It was Oscar nominated in several categories. As far as I was concerned, it was warranted in every one of them. Sam Elliott's really good in this. I can't say enough. Dave Chappelle is in this in a tiny role. I don't think he's credited at the beginning of the movie, so I was kind of shocked. Andrew Dice Clay is in this movie, and he's really good. He's somebody who, when he popped up in the film, I didn't even know it was him. It took me a second, and I'm like, it's the Dice Man. He looks his age. So anyway, this is out now, and I can't say enough good stuff about it. Now we'll look over this way. Hi, how are you? Another Oscar-nominated film that is still in theaters. This is actually coming to the Colonial Theater. So if you're local to where we're taping this in Keene, New Hampshire, and you don't want to watch it on home video, it's going to be on the big screen at the Colonial within the next 2-3 weeks, I think. This is a historical film, nice companion piece to The Favorite, really. This tells the tale of a young queen of British Isle who comes back from far away and has to rest with people not wanting her to rule her own country, maybe her being entitled to ruling England. Queen of England doesn't want that to happen. All kinds of intrigue and unrest in the tale of Mary, Queen of Scots. I feel like I just talked about this like 2 weeks ago. This is. I think I saw this very late because it played locally after it had been out for a long time. So very close to its video release, and as I said, it's still going to play locally in the near future. I really like this a lot. This is the kind of movie, as I said before when we talked about it the last time. A lot of times I'll see these costume period pieces, and I'll be like, ugh, this looks kind of boring. And then I watch them, and it's like, no, this is really good. This is like insane infighting and backbiting and manipulation and mechanisms and Machiavellian and all those other words that I may or may not understand what they mean. It's basically about these two women who are struggling with power. And there's all kinds of, again, very similar to The Favorite. It even shares a cast member with The Favorite. So if you saw The Favorite and liked it, and if you didn't see The Favorite, you really should. See Mary, Queen of Scots, because it parallels that in some interesting ways. Gorgeously shot, reminded me a lot of Monty Python and the Holy Grail at a couple of inopportune moments, especially David Tennant, who plays this long-bearded Rasputin-looking crazy guy who's against Mary. So all these people are plotting against our heroine, Mary, who's just trying to do what she's been, birthrighted to do. And they're trying to tear her down and control her and do all these other things. Meanwhile, the Queen of England is trying to get her out of the picture so that Mary does not try to steal her throne or be her successor, which apparently she has a right to. It's very interesting. It's not confusing at all. It's gorgeous to look at. It is gruesome to look at times. There are shocking moments. There are very funny moments. It is very, very cool. And the costumes are amazing. And I really liked it a lot. Again, Oscar nominated in many categories, and I think worthy in all, if not more. Mary, Queen of Scots, out on video very soon. Now we move over to, now it's time for the Arrow Video Corner. Now I'll calm down. I have 16 minutes to talk about 2 movies. There it is. How are ya? Right in the sanctum. Got him right in the sanctum, damn near killed him. So actually it's Sanctum Boat. So we have a film, these are 2 films, this is kind of cool. These are 2 films from director Joseph H. Lewis, who's somebody I'd never heard of until these discs showed up at my door. He was a studio director in the 40s for Columbia. So these are 2 studio sort of B pictures that were released in the 40s. I would turn around and tell you the dates, but I don't want to be rude. First up is a film about a woman who answers an ad to become a governess or a servant for a rich couple, and then basically just wakes up one day and she's in bed and they're calling her by a different name. But she wants to say, my name is Julia Ross.
Brill cream, brill cream, brill cream, brill cream, a little dabble do ya? Brill cream, you look so debonair. Brill cream, the gals will all pursue ya. They'll love to get their fingers in your hair.
This looks like, from the trailer, if you're on YouTube, go look it up because you just didn't see it. This looks from the trailer like a women's picture melodrama. It's really cool. This is like a solid Alfred Hitchcock Presents episode, or almost a Twilight Zone, where, as I said, this woman answers a job interview, takes a drink somewhere, and then wakes up in somebody else's clothes, in somebody else's house, being called somebody else. And basically the very basic plot that I'm not going to get too far into to ruin it, but it is explained pretty quickly, is that the people who are owning this house want everybody to believe she is the already deceased wife of this crazy guy who lives there for not very sundry reasons. So her days are kind of numbered, and she's got to figure out how to get word out. Everybody tells her, oh, if she asks anybody or tells anybody, look, I'm being held prisoner, they say, oh no, she has a touch of the vapors. She's a little crazy. She's out of it. Don't pay any attention to her. So it's this good paranoia thriller about, will this woman escape this prison that she's in where everybody smiles before something very bad happens to her, and will she get anybody to believe her? It's a tight 60, 80 minutes. It's not very long. It's an old studio programmer from the days when films were short because they were intended to be paired with another film, and cartoons and trailers and a lot for your nickel. And it was really good. I'd never heard of this. It looks fantastic, and this is why I love Arrow. They keep bringing these movies to me that I never would have seen otherwise, and I really, really like. So My Name is Julia Ross. Very good, very good, strong female lead cast. Very good cast. Not a lot of folks I recognized. Nina Foch, it is revealed in the extras, her original last name was F-O-C-K, and she said, for obvious reasons, I had to change that. So I thought that was amusing and pretty smart on her part. So we now move on to slip right on to the next film, which is another film by Joseph H. Lewis. Also another movie that starts off one way and goes another, and could have fallen easily into the Alfred Hitchcock Presents category of film. This takes place in Europe. This is about a sort of middle-aged detective who is almost like Clouseau, but not an idiot. He is like the greatest French detective who goes to this little French village and falls in love with a young woman who turns up dead, and everybody starts pointing the finger at him in a film entitled So Dark the Night.
Dessert Island, made with fresh or frozen strawberries and an island of Ready Whip, the real whipped cream. And here's an extra treat, a twin pound plan for just 50 cents and a red lock tab from a can of Ready Whip. Full details at your grocer's.
So again, a film I've never heard of, with a cast I've never heard of either. It's interesting. It starts off very light. It's very whimsical. It's almost a comedy. And then it gets progressively darker and darker as it goes, where this detective, who is seemingly a very nice guy, is investigating the murder of this very nice woman he was falling in love with, and the clues start to point to him, and he's not even sure if he did it or not. And I honestly, I watched this a week or so ago. I don't remember how it ends, so I can't give it away to you, but I did have in my notes that it is an ending you will never see coming. It was really good, very atmospheric. It features Brother Theodore as a hunchback. How many other movies do you get that? I didn't even know Brother Theodore was acting back in the 1946. I only knew him as a guy from the 70s, 80s-ish. I guess he did albums probably in the 50s or 60s as well. So again, it's a studio picture, so it's very dependably shot and cut. It looks very good. New, great, crisp black and white transfer from Arrow. You get Joseph H. Lewis short documentary about him and his career. He went on to do things like Gun Crazy and I think They Live by Night. I might be wrong on that. He did a movie called Terror in a Texas Town that I reviewed a long time ago that Arrow has out, which is this interesting high noonish kind of Western, black and white. And it's just interesting to see this overview of this guy who sort of started out in noir, did a lot of films that aren't terribly well remembered, but they're all, from what I've seen, quite good. So this is out now on the Blu-ray, I should say, from Arrow. This and Julia Ross make a nice double bill. If you have a way to see both of those, they're really good. That's all I have to talk about this week. I saw some other stuff, but I'll hold that for next week because I have a feeling next week is going to be pretty light. When I look at the films that are being released, I have a feeling that a lot of local theaters may just kind of coast on what's already out, so I may be leaning a bit more heavily toward video next week. So I guess I will leave you with that, and until then, we will cut to black. I black out very briefly once in a while. Until then, we've all been off a week, and my head's all over the place. I got a new cat. I don't even know what's going on anymore. Next week, I will be much more clear of thought and less mumbly of mouth when we talk about far fewer films than we talked about right here. I'm Mark, and I am the Cinemaniac. See ya.